Okay. Can you all hear me? Can everyone move forward? Okay. Let's start. Sahanau bhunaktu saha viryam karavavahai tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadguru Brahmaneshwaram. Okay. So we will continue on verse 11. I'll read the verse and then you can repeat after me. So I am on page 24 of the book. Should be around that page for you as well. Ragadveshadayah kamaha Ragadveshadayah kamaha Krodha lobhadayo picha Krodha lobhadayo picha Ahankarastatha svarthaha Ahankarasthatha svarthaha Vividha manaso malaha Vividha manaso malaha. Okay. So we have discussed this verse for some time now, focusing on each of these negativities that we harbor in our minds. And the purpose of this discussion is so that we can cleanse ourselves. Because otherwise, if these negativities keep staying in there, then we will never get rid of them. We will never be able to purify the mind. So we have talked about raga dvesha, likes and dislikes, kama, desires, krodha, anger, lobha, greed, ahankara, pride. So now we will talk today about svartha. Svartha means selfishness. Svartha. Okay? Swa means one's own. Artha means I'm only interested in my own purpose. So it's called svartha. So what is selfishness exactly? Selfishness is the thought that I matter most in the world. And it's all about me. Now we've seen these shirts. It's all about me. That I matter most in the world. That thought is called selfishness. And why does selfishness come? It comes because we have grown that way. We have been so habituated to think for ourselves only. Generally, when we grow up in a community, before they used to grow up in joint houses, so you're one of 20 people. So there's no way you can think about yourself. There's always thinking, okay, what's everybody gonna eat? How is everyone gonna fit in these cars? Or how is everyone gonna sleep? Where is everyone gonna sleep? And so whenever we grow up in multifold, we understand that we're part of a collective society. Now that we're growing up in nuclear families, sometimes we don't understand that. And we understand that more only when we're part of a community, of a greater community. Then we understand, oh, okay, everybody else has to eat, everybody else has to sit, everybody else has to also be part of this. Then we sort of grow above and beyond ourselves. So why selfishness has come is because we've been habituated to thinking just about ourselves. And the society also encourages to be an individual, to stand out, right? Vedanta is very different. Vedanta is not about being individual. It's about being part of the whole community and let the community stand out. Why do we have to stand out on our own? There's very less value. Actually, when we submerge our ego, that's when the true glory comes. Not when we stand out with our own ego. When we submerge the ego, that's when true glory shines. So it comes because of that. And so what is selfishness? We've seen what are the, why does it come? Now we'll see the consequences of selfishness. The consequence of selfishness is we become very insensitive to people. We don't even know what their needs are. For example, in the subway, if we're just so focused on the phone or whatever we're doing, somebody elderly may need a seat and we don't even know that. We're not even able to recognize that. When we're focused on our own thoughts and walking so fast, somebody may be there with a stroller and a child. Maybe she needs help to go up the stairs. We don't recognize that. When we're driving on the road, we're just driving here and there. We're not even recognizing that there's children who are going to cross the road. Be gentle. So the consequences is we become so insensitive to people, to people's needs. We don't even, not everybody speaks everything out. There's what we call body language, and most of language is body language. So we're not even aware of someone's body language. This is what happens with selfishness. We forget other people. Now, what is the justification here? The justification here is people feel like, but what about me? I also have to think about myself. And if I don't think about myself, then nobody will think about me. So what about me? Our scripture says something very beautiful. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Ananyash chintayanto mam ye jana paripasate tesham nityabhyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. It means that whenever we are centered on the higher, ananyash chintayanta, whenever we are centered on the higher, a higher goal, a higher vision, that which makes everybody evolve, which is none other than Bhagavan Krishna. Bhagavan Krishna is not just the being Bhagavan Krishna. Bhagavan Krishna represents a higher vision, a higher, want for humanity. Whenever we are focused on that, and whenever we surrender everything towards that, Bhagavan Krishna says, I will take care of all your yoga. Yoga here means whatever you need, and kshema, and sustain whatever is required to be sustained or secured. So don't have that thought that if I'm doing so much for so many people, if I'm giving so much for so many people, who will do for me? Bhagavan Krishna says, I myself will come and do for you. I myself will come and I will take care of you. And if you see this in and through our lives, it's very true. It's very true. There should not be a single strand of doubt that if I give myself to something higher, I'll be left behind. No, we will be taken care of. We will be looked after. Everything will be perfectly fine. We need not worry at all. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, it is written there that you need not worry. If we surrender ourselves to the higher, and if we dedicate ourselves to the higher, we need not worry, not even for a moment. There was this person who was commenting on the Bhagavad Gita, on this particular verse, okay? particular verse, he was writing a commentary. And this is a true story. And in Sanskrit, it said, Yoga Kshemam Vaham Yaham. It means, Bhagavan Krishna says, I will carry whatever you need and secure whatever you need to be sustained. I will carry it for you. So the one who was commenting, he said, nah, this isn't right. How will Bhagavan come and carry? How will God come carry it? Bhagavan will give. He will give us. He will give us what we need, and he will give us whatever needs to be sustained. He will sustain it for us. And so he took his red pen and he marked off that word which says, I will carry. He changed it to, I will give. He changed it. And he went to the river for a bath. He told his wife, I'm going to the river for a bath and I'll come back. And he left it with a red mark. And she said, please pick up these things from the grocery, on your way back. And he said, yeah, I'll do that. So he went to the river. Meanwhile, someone knocks on the door of their house. Someone knocks. And the wife opens the door. And who is there? It is this young boy carrying all the groceries. But what's in his forehead? A red mark. He's bleeding here. And so the wife says, what happened to you? And he says, your husband did this to me. But he also told me to bring groceries for you. Your husband did this to me. She was very upset. She said, how can my husband do that? And she cleaned the wound and everything. She took the groceries. She thanked the young boy. And she said, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And she started preparing dinner. Now, sometime later, the husband knocked on the door. He came. And just as he was walking in, he said, oh, I forgot the groceries. I forgot to buy all of these things. She said, what do you mean you forgot? She said, somebody came here, a young boy. He brought all of these groceries. And he said, what? She said, yeah, but I'm very mad at you because in his forehead there was a red line and he was bleeding. And he said, you did that to him. And this husband was just stunned. He went into his commentary, and that part where he wrote, Lord Krishna says, I will give you your yoga kshema. I will give you whatever you need and preserve whatever you need sustained. He erased his red mark. He kept the words, I will carry. Lord Krishna will carry it to you. Not that he will give it to you, he will carry it for you. And he erased his red mark and he cried that day. Because he understood that when we do something for the higher, Bhagavan himself will carry it. Bhagavan himself will come, will carry it, will bring it to our doorsteps even. But it will be there because that's the promise. So there is no room in our scriptures for us to think about selfishness. One of the greatest impurities is selfishness. And if we think about this story, how beautiful it is, we should also think about how our culture is so beautiful that selflessness is in and through our culture. And I'll give you some examples. Whenever we think of the Bharatiya culture, right, it's never about the person, it's about the vision. Everyone is always going together towards a great vision. Whenever we become selfish, we're only thinking about what I want, what he wants, what she wants. We're only thinking about what people want. But there, even when Anil was speaking about Shivaji Maharaj, that great vision of Swaraj, or that great vision of freedom, those freedom fighters, their vision was only that. It was not about my comfort, my needs, what I have to go through. Their vision was only that. And when they kept that, their vision, they were able to let go of everything. Every single comfort they let go of because they kept the vision above. So one way to let go of this selfishness is to keep the vision there. A very basic example I'll give you. In our day-to-day world, when we have to have a meeting, right? Many people in the workplace, with the family also, we have to have a meeting. It's so much messages for what time the meeting has to be, correct? Because everybody wants at their convenient time. I want at this time, this is good for me. I want at that time. How many of us think, okay, which would be the best time for everybody? How many of us would think that? No, we're all thinking about which is the best time for me. Where should we go to eat? Some of us are thinking, what food do I like? Let's go to this place. A very few are thinking about where can everybody eat and enjoy. Where should we go for vacation? I want this place, I'm booking it already. See, I'm booking it already. How many will think, where can everybody have fun and relax and benefit? Where can this place be for everybody? So whenever we think just what we like, what's convenient for us, what's comfortable for us, that's absolute selfishness. And in that selfishness, only we enjoy, but we don't even enjoy because we find that other people are not enjoying. Then we also feel like, this isn't really worth it. So in our culture, it's always about the vision and not about the person. That's how selflessness is apparent. The second example is, it's not about the person, it's about the action. So here, when let us say somebody writes a book, the author's name is right there in front. This is the person who wrote the book, this is the person who directed the movie, and there's so much buzz about putting the person in front. If you look at our Vedas, did the rishis write their names there? No. In Ramayana, Tulsidas has written Ramayana, Valmini has written Ramayana, Kambar has written Ramayana. Their purpose is not for their name to shine out. Their purpose is for Sri Ram, Sita, Devi, Hanumanji to shine out. If you look at how Swami Tulsidas has written, he said, in my writing, it's full of blemishes. I don't know how to write. I don't know how to put words together. I don't even know what I'm doing. But it's because of Sri Rama that people will read this writing. And it's because of Sri Rama's name that this will be blemishless. This is how they are writing. This is how they're writing. Kamban Ramayana is writing Kamban. He's a South Indian who wrote Ramayana in their language. He said, now think of a cat, a kitten who wants milk. And think of the whole ocean as milk. How will that kitten drink from that whole ocean? In that way, I desire to write Ramayana, even if it's quite impossible to extol the glories of Sri Ram and Sita Devi. I desire to write it. So in the action, people lost themselves. They were not wanting them to shine out, that I did this, I did that, this was written by me, this was directed by me. They always put the action over themselves. And this is in our language. In English, what is first person? I. Yes? In Samskritam, what is Prathama Purusha? First person is he, she, they. That's simple. That's simple. When our saints and sages, whenever they write a composition, what's the first verse? Mangala Charana, an invocation. I invoke the higher power for their grace and blessings. May they flow through me to write this. May thy grace and blessings flow through us to the world around us. So in our culture, it's not about the person. It is about the action that is being done. Also, it is not about the person, it's about the transformation. It's about the transformation. our saints and sages were so glorious that when people were with them, if they felt like, okay, this person needed something higher, this person needed something greater, they weren't afraid to let them go. Our Swami Shivananda Ji, which is Swami Chinmayananda Ji, Puja Gurudev's Guru, Diksha Guru, Swami Chinmayananda Ji learned from Swami Shivananda Ji. And he sat there and he learned about the scriptures. And Swami Chinmayananda Ji said, I want to learn deeper now. Swami Shivananda Ji said, you must go to Swami Tapovan Maharaj. Go to the Himalayas, go learn from Swami Tapovan Maharaj and drink the scriptures from him because he can teach them to you. So this is the glory of our culture, where we take people over and above us. Where all the saints and sages say, now you have learned, now you go away. Now you please, you carry your own torch. You bear it, you lead people. Our own scriptures themselves will say, after you have mastered me, let me go. Let me go, because it is about your transformation. There's no sense of dependence, that we have to depend on a person, we have to keep depending on a scripture, we have to keep depending on a system. No, once it's mastered, go. Because it's not about people keeping people, or people being with people. It is about the transformation and evolution of everyone. And so when we as parents and teachers, when our children, when we feel like, okay, now our children need something better, we should also say, please now you learn from somebody else. Please now learn from this person, go higher, become better than me. That's also a great vision to have. Why should you be like me? Be better than me. So in this way, selflessness means that it's always about the vision and not about the person, the likes and dislikes of the person. It's about the action and not about the person. It is about the transformation and not the person. And one way that our scriptures bring this about is also through identifying with the greater. See, when I identify as a New Yorker, how small will my vision be? I'm just concerned about New York City, right? It's only about New York City, right? When I identify as I'm an American citizen, okay, little bit bigger. But if I am a global citizen, that I am this person who is a citizen not of a particular state, or sometimes we divide also, no, I'm from east side, I'm from west side only, yeah? This very, very small thinking. Or I'm from New York City, I don't know about San Francisco, like that. It's very small thinking. But if we identify for the greater, or with the greater world, or with humanity, how would we behave? Sometimes we're so short-sighted, we feel like everywhere we go, people should speak English. Do you go to Rome? Yeah, I'm from America, why don't you speak English? Hello, why don't you speak Italian, right? We feel like everybody should do things the way we do things. I live in America and I drive on this side of the street, so how come everybody's driving on the other side? Please think, right? We're not people from one little city, one little state, one little area. We're a citizen of humanity. And when we extend our identification to understand that, we become very aware of other people and how other people think, how they feel, what they need, what their culture's like. And we stop being so self-centered on our culture. I think of Bharat, and whenever I travel there, there is such a spirit of accommodativeness. It is chaos, but it's a chaos where everybody understands each other's chaos. Like you're walking on the road and the monkey's going to walk with you, and so is the cow, and so is the horse, and so is the motorcycle, and so are the cars. But everybody just gets it, right? Nobody else has a problem with that chaos. Everybody understands this is just the way we work. And there's such a sense of accommodation. There's no like, this is my space, that's your space, or this is what we call road. And everybody has the right to the road. So we'll all just use it as we need to use it. I remember once, one of the Swamijis told me this, that the president of Singapore told one of our previous prime ministers, that Singapore is so orderly and everything is so systematic and organized. And so she said, you have a supermarket, I have a nation. Right? I have so many people here, so many people, and such diverse cultures and views. So it's not easy, but what has to be admired is that sense of accommodativeness. How people will always give. It doesn't matter if they don't have or they have less. They will always be willing to accommodate. They will always be willing to give. And so that's very much ingrained in our culture. One more thing that's in our scriptures is called Virat Upasana. This also comes in chapter 11 of the Bhagavad Gita, when Bhagavan Krishna tells Arjuna that I am actually all. I am everything. All the trees, the sky, the sun, the moon, everything that you see is me. I am everything. And so when we understand that this reality, this truth that's in you, that's in me, is amidst everything, in and through everything, then one will automatically feel that sense of selflessness for other beings. That this person is also me. And that's why we say namaste, right? Neil was showing that namaste is there from our Saraswati civilization thousands of years ago, that you and I are one. And imagine if we started all transactions with you and I are one. Or Hari Om means in your form I see God. And how beautiful that transaction is. How beautiful that interaction is, because we are on the same space. We are one. We are one. So this selfishness, it's a big stick, because it makes us appear as greater, it makes us feel like we're superior, it makes us feel like we're so important. But when we become selfless, we actually begin to realize how we are one, how we are truly one. So the way to practice this is stay alert, be aware of other people around us, in front of us. They might not say everything, they might not say things, they might not do things, but be aware of what other people may need, how other people may feel. Put ourselves in their shoes. And when we begin to do that, we become selfless. A question arises about, sometimes I just feel like taking that time out for myself. Is that very selfish? Like sometimes I just want to go out and I just want to go out and walk, or I want to go out and go to the parlor, or I want to go out and go to the movies, I want to go out and go hang out with my friends. Is that being selfish? See, there's a difference between selfishness and self-care. Self-care is something we should all do. Self-care is taking care of our body, our mind, our intellect at the right time, at the right place. Not when my kids are going to school, I'm in self-care mode. No! Or when the kids come home, I'm in self-care mode. No. Self-care is to be done at the right time, at the right place. And the purpose of self-care is to relax and rejuvenate so I can give more. Not so I can get drained and tired and exhausted. If my idea of self-care is doing something that's going to completely drain me out and exhaust me, that is absolutely selfish. That in itself is selfishness. But if what I'm doing for self-care It's going to rejuvenate me, make me feel fresh, make me feel better, so I can give more and I can serve more. Do it. Nobody has any issues with it. Do it. But do it at the right time, at the right place. So that it can, at the end of the day, make us more selfless. Okay? So this is selfishness. Clear about selfishness? Any doubts about selfishness? Okay. So the key points are to always keep the vision above us, action above us, transformation above us. Keep all above us. And above us doesn't mean we're not included. We are included in it. But we're always, our eyes are always there for greater good. Yeah.
I have a little trouble maybe reconciling between what is selfish and selfless, like in terms of, for example, picking a place to go out where to eat.
Yeah.
So at what point do you say this is my identity? Because if you never ask yourself, you don't know yourself either. Like, okay, I like XYZ, but I'm open with whatever everybody else takes. But to ask that question, like, what do you, because if you don't ever ask that, you are sort of, I don't know if that makes sense, but is being selfish to ask? Or
It's not selfish to ask, but see, the goal of Vedanta, what we're studying, is not to strengthen our identity also. You know, it is so that identity dissolves in totality. That I stop identifying just as Shubhani. Means I have to identify as everybody here. It is not to strengthen my identity. So we're not in any way trying to keep it guarded and nurture it. And that maturity should be, it's not that we're losing ourselves. Please understand, we're gaining, I mean, the total world has become us. That's such a great gain, isn't it? Rather than us shining out, us leaving out. Wait, I am the whole world. What a beautiful feeling. What a beautiful notion, right? So I am all. This is where we have to come to. Yeah. And plus we also enjoy more when everybody else enjoys, everyone else partakes. Otherwise we get so annoyed. How come I'm having fun? How come you're not having fun? We get annoyed at other people. How come you're not having fun? Right? It's when I have that spirit, and if everybody enjoys and appreciates also. Okay, yeah.
So, given that we wear so many hats when it comes to like what our dharma is, right? And sometimes those can be in conflict with one another. I wonder if that same lens can be brought to what is selfish versus not. Maybe I can explain with an example.
Yeah, sure.
Like, let's say this is hypothetical. Let's say my role or my job is to protect my family.
Mm-hmm.
And there can be circumstances where I may have to take a selfish stance against an outsider to protect my family. Like there are famous examples of people stealing to, provide their family with them, right? So what is that act? Is that a selfish act?
So there is a very famous Sanskrit Subhashita. I'll say it in English. It says now, leave the person for the family. Okay? But leave the family, let go of the family for the village. Let go of the village for the nation. Let go of the nation for the sake of the self, Atma. So it's always letting go of that which is lower, in the sense that it is less people involved for that which is greater, which is more people involved, which is going to impact more people. That's how we have to think about it, right? We have to keep letting go of that which is less people, impacting less people, for that which will impact more people. Okay. All right. Now, the text now is going to be go a little bit deeper. So let me just give you the intro to this verse, and we'll understand. So far, in this text, we've talked about purifying the mind, and we've talked about all the good qualities we can develop to purify the mind. We talked about austerity, if you remember, right? Tapas, yajna, selfless, dedicated service. We talked about charity. Then after that, we talked about japa, we talked about vrata, taking a vow, and tirtha. So we talked about these various ways of purifying the mind. Then we also talked about the impurities we have in the mind. How we have to purify the mind, but we also have to be cognizant of what impurities are there so we can let it go. Because sometimes we think of ourselves as so ideal and so perfect that we have no faults. But with other people, we know all of their faults from A to Z, right? So we also have to look at ourselves and say, okay, I have these impurities, let me work on them. And we went through each one. Raga, dvesha, likes and dislikes, kama, desire, krodha, anger, lobha, greed, ahankara, pride, and now svartha, selfishness. Because only when we understand, when people say, okay, let go of greed. But what is greed? Right? Let go of selfishness. But we have to understand what that is so I know where is that in me. And slowly learn to see these things in us and let them go. Now here, he's going to talk about a deeper impurity. Not just these things in the mind, but the mind itself is impure. The mind itself is impure. So let us see this verse. I'm on verse number 12. Ete sarve hi drishyante. Ete sarve drishyante. Chitte chalati jagrati. Chitte chalati jagrati. Pralinam chayada chittam. Pralinam chayada chittam. Nete sham drishyate gatihi. Nete sham drishyate gatihi. Do it together. Ete sarve hi drishyante. Chitte chalati jagrati. Pralinam chayada chittam. Nete sham drishyate gatihi. So all of these qualities, these positivities, these negativities, they all belong to the mind. But the deeper question to ask is, am I the mind? Am I the mind to which all of these belong to? So here it says, ete. Ete means all of these. Ete sarvehi. All of these impurities. All of these impurities, drishyante. Drishyante are seen, chitte, they're seen in the mind where chalati jagrati means they are seen in the mind when it is awake. So when the mind is awake, all of these impurities are seen. Pralinam chayada chittam. Yada, when chittam, when that mind is pralinam, when the mind is dissolved like in deep sleep, na etesham drishyate gatihi. These movements, gatihi, are not seen. Drishyate, they are not seen in the mind. So, what is it saying? When the mind is there, all of these qualities of the mind can be seen. When the mind is not there, all of these qualities of the mind are not seen. So sometimes the mind is there, sometimes the mind is not there. But I am always there. The mind has this characteristic of being anitya. Anitya means it's impermanent. We are able to see the arrival and departure of the mind. When the mind wakes up, there's arrival of the mind. Arrival of the mind. When the mind goes to sleep, there's departure of the mind. So the mind has every day arrival and departure. Arrival and departure. But do I arrive and do I depart? No. I'm that which is there constantly amidst the mind's arrival and departure. The mind keeps modifying into different thoughts every day. Happy thought, sad thought, tired thought, excited thought, cheerful thought, keeps modifying. amidst those changes in the mind, I am still there, changeless. I am aware of all of the changes that are taking place in the mind. So the mind has arrival and departure. The mind keeps changing. And the mind is also an object of my experience. I am aware of my mind. Means I am different from my mind. Because if I am aware of something, then I'm different from it. Right? I'm aware of this book. Therefore, I am different from this book. I'm aware of this mic. So I'm different from this mic. So the fact that we are aware of our mind, it is changing, it has arrival and departure, it means I am not the mind. This is not me. Because it keeps changing and I'm always there. That which is not there with me all the time cannot be me. For example, the essential nature of sugar is sweetness. Huh? It is not the white color or the brown color or the sugar cubes. Because sometimes sugar may appear white, sometimes brown. Sometimes it may appear as cubes, sometimes powdered. But no matter where you go in the world, sugar will be sweet. Yes? Nowhere you go, sugar will be salty. Fire. Fire, sometimes the color is bluish. Sometimes it's reddish. Sometimes it's yellow. But its essential nature is heat. Wherever we go, fire will always be hot. Right? So these things, such as the color of fire, or the color of sugar, these are incidental things. They're not the essential nature. The essential nature of a thing will always be as is, no matter where you go, no matter where you are, it will always be there. So our essential nature is not the mind. It is actually that which is beyond the mind, which is Atman, the self. It's Atman, the self. The question might come into your mind, then why are we talking about all of this purifying the mind business? It's because the mind needs to be purified to a great extent to understand that I am not the mind. The mind full of or clouded with greed and jealousy and pride and so forth will never come to realize I am not the mind. But that mind which is so peaceful, so subtle, so grounded, will be able to realize, I am actually not the mind. So now he's taking it a step deeper and he's saying, think about your real nature, and your real nature is being different from the mind. Now the question comes, if I am different from the mind, how do I deal with the mind? Is the mind the problem then? What exactly is the problem? Is the mind the problem? Is the body the problem? Is the mind the problem? So the answer is, the mind is not the problem. It's the relationship we have with the mind. That's the problem. Why? Because the next verse is going to go into both somebody who is wise, somebody who's otherwise. For otherwise, I'm going to use somebody who's ignorant, right? Both someone who's wise and who's otherwise, both have a mind. But the wise person's mind does not disturb them. But the ignorant person's mind disturbs them all the time. All the time. So let us read this verse. Verse number 13. We'll just touch upon it. Jagratyapi cha vidvamsam.
Jagratyapi cha vidvamsam.
Pīdayanti na te tatha.
Pīdayanti na te tatha.
Avidvamsam yatha lokam.
Avidvamsam yatha lokam.
Daya patram cha sarvada.
Daya patram cha sarvada.
Together. Jagratyapi cha vidvamsam. Pīdayanti na te tatha. avidvamsam yatha lokam daya patram cha sarvada. So here, what does it say? Jagrati api, even in waking state, vidvamsam. Vidvamsam means a wise person. Na pidayanti. Na te means te. These qualities, characteristics of the mind, na pidayanti. They do not disturb vidvamsam, a very wise person. So even when the mind is active and we are not the mind, for a wise person, they don't get disturbed by the mind. But avidvamsam, for the otherwise, yatha, in the same way or in another way, lokam daya patram cha sarvada. They're always somebody who's pitiful, getting so disturbed by that mind. So how do we see this? When we look at wise people, see, they understand the nature of things. This is the beauty of a wise person. A wise person understands the body will go through so many things. The body will go through birth, will go through growth, maturity, decay, and it will die. Because that's the nature of the body. That's the nature of the body. So if the body is getting sick, they know that the body will get sick. If the body is getting pain, some kind of pain, they know that's the nature of the body. Sometimes pain will happen. So they understand this is not me. This is something that I have, and therefore I need not get so frustrated over it. The hair is grey, it will gray. What do you expect it to do? Turn brown? No, it will turn gray, right? The mind will also shift. They understand that the mind will shift, that at certain times of the day, the mind will be very, very alive, very active. In the morning times. They understand also that at the close of the day, the mind will be very tired and sleepy. That's the nature of the mind. You see, the mind goes through ups and downs also. So they know the mind will also go through this. Absolutely okay. So they are not persecuted by their mind. They're not annoyed by their mind. They're not frustrated by their mind, because their mind is purified to a great extent. It's purified to a great extent, and they know that the mind will have to go through its ups and downs. But when we come to the other wise, they are constantly persecuted by the mind. Anything that's happening to the mind, we take it that is happening to me. So the mind is going through some sorrow, I am going through some sorrow. Something happened to my child and I feel terrible. The mind feels terrible, I feel terrible. My mind, it's in a whirl right now. I am in a whirl right now. My mind's, very, very cheerful, and I'm very, very cheerful and ecstatic. We constantly identify with the mind. And when we constantly identify with the mind, of course we're going to get disturbed by it. Of course we're going to get perturbed by it. So it's not the body per se that's disturbing us, nor is the mind that's disturbing us. It's our relationship to it. And it's also our understanding. If I think that this body is me and this mind is me, we're gonna go for a ride. And if I think that this body is so real and this mind is so real, we're gonna go for a huge, huge ride. But if I understand that I am different from the mind, I am different from the body, and the body has its dharma, the mind has its dharma, and let me just witness that. Let me just be aware of that. And when we just remain as we are, that pure awareness, then we will find great freedom. We cannot stop what the body will have to go through. It will have to age. We cannot stop that. Even if we try so hard, we won't be able to stop it. We cannot stop the mind also from aging. When we grow older, there's going to be less memory, less ability to grasp things. We cannot stop that. The only freedom that we have is to be free from identifying with this body and with this mind. Knowing that, the wise person is perfectly fine. With the mind, without the mind, they don't mind. This is the difference. So for today, I leave you with this thought. More, the inquiry will go a little bit deeper. It will go into the cause now of such a relationship, cause of why we think the mind to be real. So that we will take up next week. The inquiry will go into a deeper level and he will analyze the entire world, how it comes about and how we see it. Okay? Before we close, are there any questions from anybody? Or thoughts? Okay. So for this week, just keep these two thoughts in the mind. One is, in interacting in our day-to-day life, always keep the vision, action, transformation above the self, and learn to just be aware of the mind and the body. Learn to detach from the mind and the body, and just remain as you are. That's your true nature. All right, let's close. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari